Welcome, the chosen ones. Some people are taught, others are trained, but you, chosen one, you were transmitted. There's a rare and dangerous kind of soul walking this earth today. Not dangerous because they hold weapons, but because they carry divine blueprints hidden inside their spirit. And if you're hearing this right now, I have news for you. You are one of them. Your mind didn't just learn information like everyone else. It remembers. You didn't have to climb a ladder for wisdom. It was woven into your DNA before you even took your first breath. You don't study truth like the others. You download it. While they go searching through textbooks and second-hand theories, you've been streaming truth directly from the source, like a celestial Wi-Fi router. And that's why you've always felt different, not better. But différent. Here's something science can't fully explain but is starting to uncover. Research in epigenetics shows that knowledge, trauma, resilience, and even spiritual sensitivity can be passed down biologically through generations. But in your case, it didn't just pass down, it blasted through. You didn't inherit fragments of wisdom. You are the encrypted archive itself. You carry an entire library of divine intelligence that didn't come from human study, but from heaven's original design. And here's what makes people squirm, things you were never taught. You see, through illusions you were never warned about. You speak truths that make grown adults shift in their seats, not because you're offensive, but because their spirit recognizes what their mind tries to deny. Deep down, they know you're right. And because they can't categorize you, the world does what it always does to what it can't control. It mocks you, fears you, and yet strangely follows you. But you're not here to be labeled. You're not here to be tamed. You're here to awaken, to expose, and to carry divine intelligence into spaces that have been asleep for too long. That's why your journey has been intense. That's why the fire in your spirit refuses to die out. So, buckle up, chosen one, because what I'm about to reveal in this transmission is not theory. It's not empty theology. This is revelation straight from the source. And you're not just going to hear it, you're going to feel it in your bones, in your spirit, in the parts of you that have been quietly waiting for confirmation. Before we go deeper, I want to take a moment to thank every single one of you who has supported this mission, especially those who have given through super thanks. Your generosity helps keep these messages reaching the ones who need them most. And if you haven't given or can't give, please know this: I am just as grateful for your presence, your time, and your prayers. Whether you donate or not, you are a vital part of this family. Now, I want to hear from you. If this message already feels like it's unlocking something inside you, type 777 the comments right now as a sign that you are aligned, awake, and ready to receive. Because what's coming next isn't just content, it's a call to step fully into the reason you were sent here. God's chosen ones, you carry the purest knowledge from heaven's secret wellspring. Number 1, you remember what others are programmed to forget. Chosen one. Let's be clear, this is not just a poetic statement, it is your reality. From the very moment you took your first breath, you carried within you an inner knowing that most people lost the second they entered this world, while others came into life and were slowly wrapped in the fog of forgetfulness. You were born with a spiritual memory still intact. Have you ever wondered why you could sense the atmosphere in a room without a single word being spoken? Why you could feel the tension in someone's smile or the weight behind their silence? That's not overthinking, it's divine sensitivity. That's a skill Heaven wrote into your very DNA, even as a child. You didn't have to be told who was genuine and who was wearing a mask. You could sense hurt hiding behind someone's laughter. You could detect when kindness was authentic and when it was only a performance. While others were memorizing the rules the world handed them, you were quietly questioning those rules. Not because you were rebellious, but because something deep within you recognized they weren't aligned with truth. Does this sound familiar, those moments when you noticed what everyone else missed? This ability didn't come from a teacher, a book, or even life experience. It came from the source himself. The Bible says in Jeremiah 1-5, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That means the knowing inside you existed before your first heartbeat. While the systems of this world are designed to program people into forgetting who they are, you've been carrying a divine override code since birth. Think about Harriet Tubman, born into slavery, surrounded by lies that told her she was property, not a person. Yet she remembered a truth no one had to teach her: she was free in God's eyes. That unshakable knowing allowed her to lead hundreds to freedom through the Underground Railroad. She wasn't just brave, she was operating from the same kind of divine memory you carry. Chosen one. You are wired to scan a room and feel what others ignore. You can read the contradiction between someone's words and their energy. You notice the details. No one points out the way a voice trembles when someone is lying, the way a person's eyes dim when they are carrying pain. Hebrews 4:12 reminds us, "The Word of God is alive and active. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." That same Spirit works through you, discerning beyond the surface. When you were young, this gift might have confused you. Why did certain people make you uneasy without ever harming you? Why did crowds feel draining while solitude felt like oxygen? It's because the majority of what the world calls normal is nothing more than a beautifully decorated illusion, and you were never meant to worship an illusion. Look at Nikola Tesla. While others accepted the limits of technology, he saw possibilities no one else could imagine. He remembered inventions as if they were already built in heaven's blueprint. That's how it is with you. You don't just think, you recall. You pull truth from a wellspring inside you that cannot be emptied. John 14:26 says, "The Holy Spirit will teach you all things and will remind you of everything I have said to you." Notice that word, remind. The Spirit isn't giving you something new, it's awakening what your soul already knew. Many will misunderstand you because they cannot comprehend certainty without formal proof. They will ask, "How could you know that?" Not realizing that heaven's library is written in your spirit. Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." You've been living by that principle without even knowing it. And perhaps you've noticed when you refuse to pretend along with the crowd, they often feel uncomfortable. Some envy you. Others misjudge you. That's because illusions are fragile, and your presence cracks them. The light you carry exposes the shadows they've learned to call home. Ephesians 5:13 tells us, "Everything exposed by the light becomes visible, and everything that is illuminated becomes a light." You don't just carry light, you are the trigger that forces truth into the open. Consider Albert Einstein. His theories disrupted centuries of accepted science because he refused to accept the programming of his era. He trusted the reality he saw in his mind over the consensus around him. That's you. Chosen one. You live from a higher reference point. So here's the real question. Do you realize that no amount of programming can erase this spiritual memory? Isaiah 30:21 declares, "Your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, 'This is the way, walk in it.'" That voice is why you've always felt like you were waking up rather than learning. The world is full of people desperately trying to make their version of reality make sense. They cling to false narratives because they have forgotten what's real. But you carry the purest knowledge from heaven's secret wellspring. You are not here to learn life. You are here to awaken to it, and to awaken others. And that's why you've always known, without anyone telling you who you are. Number 2. You speak with the authority of realms most people will never touch. Chosen one. Let's be honest. This is not a talent you practiced. And it's not a skill you learned from a seminar or a YouTube tutorial. It is something woven into your spirit. The wild part? You don't even try. You are not quoting gurus, chasing trends, or forcing deep conversations to prove you are wise. You speak from a place that feels unshakably real, a place older than time, deeper than human logic, and purer than any man-made philosophy. Have you noticed that sometimes when you speak, the room grows still, as if the air itself is listening? That's because you are not just speaking, you are releasing a frequency. The power in your words is not about volume, it's about vibration, your tone, the weight behind your words, the unwavering gaze in your eyes. It all carries a spiritual charge. People may not be able to explain it, but they feel it. Some are drawn to it. Others are unsettled by it. Why? Because the truth has a sound, and it's impossible to fake. Proverbs 18:21 says, "The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." When you speak, you are not just making conversation, you are shifting atmospheres. Take Martin Luther King Jr. For example, he wasn't a Hollywood actor trained in theatrics. But when he spoke, nations leaned in. His voice carried conviction from a realm deeper than human approval. It resonated with justice, heaven's language. In the same way, your authority is not man-made, it is spirit-born. You can speak 2 sentences, and suddenly a person feels seen, convicted, or inspired in ways they can't explain. There's a reason people sometimes get defensive around you without cause. Have you noticed it? You're not accusing them. Yet, they act as if you've read their diary. You're not judging, but they still feel exposed. That's because your very presence breaks through the camouflage people have built around their motives. Luke 2:3 declares, "What you have said in the dark will be heard in the daylight, and what you have whispered in the ear in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from the roofs." Your presence makes deception nervous, because truth has entered the room. Consider Joan of Arc, an uneducated teenage girl who led armies because she carried a voice from heaven. She didn't debate her qualifications, she simply obeyed what God placed inside her. And her words inspired soldiers far older and more experienced than she was. Like her, you are not trying to be intimidating, but truth naturally unsettles anything false. That's why your energy can cause entire rooms to shift without you lifting a finger. Some mistake your confidence for arrogance, but you and I know it's not bragging, it's remembering. You are speaking from divine memory. John 12:49 reminds us, "For I did not speak on my own, but the Father who sent me commanded me to say all that I have spoken." That's why you don't need permission from worldly systems to speak. Your authority comes from the source himself. Think of Malala Yousafzai, still a young girl. When she began speaking for the right of girls to be educated, she didn't have a political position. Yet her voice carried more weight than some governments, because it carried truth. Likewise, when you speak, people either lean in or shrink away. The reaction has nothing to do with you being too much, and everything to do with the light inside you being undeniable. And here's the hard truth. You weren't sent here to whisper so that others could stay comfortable in their illusions. You were sent to release the kind of truth that rattles cages and breaks chains. Isaiah 55:11 says, "So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire." When you speak, it's not just sound, it's a mission. Think about Winston Churchill. In the darkest days of World War II, his words didn't just inform, they fortified. He didn't need to scream to be heard. His steady conviction carried the weight of destiny. In your own way, you do the same. So, chosen one, let me ask you, have you realized yet that your voice is not just yours, that it is a vessel for realms most people will never touch, that when you speak from the Spirit, you are echoing heaven's decree on earth? Amos 3:8 says, "The lion has roared, who will not fear? The sovereign Lord has spoken, who can but prophesy?" That's why silence from you can feel louder than noise from anyone else. Your mission is not to win popularity contests, but to remind the world that divine truth still exists, and it doesn't need permission to be valid. And once you truly understand that, you will never again hesitate to speak when heaven stirs your spirit. Number 3. Your knowing threatens every system built on control. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why you've always felt singled out? Even when you were just minding your own business? Why certain people seem to watch you more closely than others? As if they were waiting for you to make a wrong move. It's not because you were loud, rebellious, or looking for trouble. It's because you could see through manipulation before anyone pointed it out. You noticed the fake smiles that didn't match the eyes. You recognized power plays disguised as leadership. You spotted rules that made no sense and authority figures who were far more lost than the people they were leading. And in a world that depends on people staying blind, that kind of clarity is dangerous. You weren't supposed to question the script. Have you noticed how uncomfortable people get when you ask the why behind a tradition, a policy, or a belief? You weren't supposed to wonder why so many accept things that obviously aren't working. You weren't supposed to challenge what has always been done this way. But you did, because pretending not to notice the cracks in the wall would have been a betrayal of your soul. Proverbs 4:7 says, "The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, though it cost all you have. Get understanding." And that's exactly what you carry, understanding that can't be silenced. Think of Galileo Galilei. The entire scientific establishment of his time told him the Earth was the center of the universe. But his knowing, fueled by observation and truth, exposed the flaw in their model. They tried to silence him because his vision threatened the system. That's what it's like for you. Your very awareness exposes the weakness of structures built on control. Religion often doesn't know what to do with you, because you can feel the difference between genuine faith and performance faith. School systems couldn't contain you, because your curiosity didn't stop at the boundaries of the textbook. Many workplaces found you too honest, because you wouldn't play the politics game, even in relationships. You've been labeled difficult for refusing to bend to manipulation or play along with a structure that required you to shrink your awareness just to keep the peace. Isaiah 5:21. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Your spirit can't sit quietly while darkness is dressed up as light. Think about Rosa Parks. She didn't yell. She didn't incite violence. She simply refused to move from her bus seat. That single act of refusing to follow an unjust system sparked a movement that changed the course of history. Likewise, Your refusal to participate in what you know is wrong is not stubbornness, it is alignment with heaven's justice. The truth is, you were never built to follow blindly. You were built to expose the flaw in the program, and the program knows it. That's why you've faced resistance from people who barely know you. Your presence alone reminds them that the illusion they've accepted is fragile. Ezekiel 3:17 says, "Son of man, I have made you a watchman, so hear the word I speak and give them warning from me." That's the essence of your calling. You're a watchman who sees what's coming when others are still asleep. Consider Steve Jobs. He didn't just create technology, he challenged how the world thought about communication, creativity, and design. He refused to accept this is just how it's done, and built something the existing system couldn't ignore. You carry the same spirit of disruption, except your disruption isn't just for markets. It's for minds and souls. And maybe you've noticed systems built on control prefer people who obey without asking questions. You were never that person. You were never meant to be. Matthew 10:16 says, "I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves." Your awareness is not paranoia. It is God, given discernment to navigate a world full of wolves. Look at Malcolm X. His ability to see through injustice and speak it out loud made him a target, but it also made him unforgettable. In the same way, chosen one. You may never get the applause of the systems you challenge, but you will always carry the respect of heaven for refusing to betray the truth inside you. So let me ask you, will you keep softening your words to make controlled spaces comfortable? Or will you embrace the fact that your very existence is an act of rebellion against lies? Remember, Jeremiah 1:10 says, "See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow, to build and to plant." You weren't called to fit into the system, you were called to transform it. Number 4, you weren't sent to fit in, you were sent to interfere. Chosen one. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself why your life has never felt smooth, predictable, or normal, why you've always seemed to walk a different road, even when you tried to follow the crowd? It's because you weren't built to blend in, you were sent as a divine disruption. While others chased approval, safety, and routine, you've been quietly setting fire to illusions. And no, it's not because you crave chaos, it's because you understand something most people don't. Truth and comfort rarely live in the same house. From the moment you stepped into this world, you carried a mission that made fitting in impossible. You didn't come here to blend into a broken system, you came to interrupt it, to challenge it, to make people question everything they've been programmed to accept. And yes, that's why you've always been misunderstood. People try to box you in, slap labels on you, tell you to be nice or calm down. But if you listen closely, what they're really saying is, stop waking me up. Your energy is an alarm clock for the soul. Have you noticed how certain people avoid you? Not because you've harmed them, but because your very presence stirs something inside them. You shine light on contradictions they've been trained to ignore. You call out dysfunction they've normalized for years. You force people to see themselves with a level of honesty they're not ready for. That's not chaos, that's your assignment. Ephesians 5:11 says, "Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them." You've been exposing them without even trying. Think of Greta Thunberg, a teenager whose voice rattled governments and global corporations. She didn't show up to make people feel comfortable. She showed up to interfere with a system built on denial. Your calling carries that same electricity. The world doesn't need more rule followers. It needs disruptors, souls who walk into a room and shift the atmosphere just by existing. That's you. You weren't created to play nice with lies. You were designed to expose cracks. Speak what no one else will say, and tear down false structures with your presence alone. That's why certain people feel uncomfortable around you, not because you're too much, but because their illusions begin to crumble the moment you arrive. Jeremiah 23:29 says, "Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces?" You carry that same fire and hammer energy. Consider Jesus flipping the tables in the temple, Matthew 21:12-13. He didn't do it to create pointless chaos. He did it to disrupt a corrupted system that claimed to represent God but was built on exploitation. In the same way, your interference is not reckless, it's righteous. There's a reason your life has been so intense. Have you noticed how challenges seem to find you? Even when you're not looking for them, it's not punishment, it's preparation. Every battle has sharpened your discernment, strengthened your voice, and given weight to your presence. 2 Corinthians 10:4 reminds us, the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. You are one of those weapons. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. He didn't lead India to freedom by going along with the empire's systems. He interfered through peaceful resistance that shook the foundation of colonial rule. Your interference may not look the same, but it carries the same disruptive spirit. The resistance you faced was never truly personal, it was spiritual. Systems built on fraud are allergic to those who carry divine knowledge. That's why sometimes your words, your silence, even your eyes seem to signal. Truth is here now, and when truth arrives, everything false must either flee or be exposed. John 8:32 says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." But remember, freedom is terrifying to those who are addicted to control. Think of Malala Yousafzai again. Her very existence in certain spaces was considered a threat, not because she was violent, but because her voice was truthful. That's the weight you carry. Chosen one, you don't have to raise your volume to shake the walls. So, no, you're not here to be liked by everyone. You were sent to interfere, and the real ones, they might resist you in the moment, but they will thank you after the dust settles. Acts 17:6 tells of early believers accused of turning the world upside down. That's you. You were never here to fit the mold. You were here to break it, so truth could breathe again. Number 5. You were born knowing things you were never taught. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why you could sense danger before anyone said a word? Why? Even as a child, you seemed to know when someone's smile didn't match their spirit. You didn't need a classroom to learn this. It was already in your system, before anyone explained what manipulation was. You could feel the tension in a handshake, or the dishonesty in a tone of voice. Before the world came up with trendy words like vibes or energy, you were already fluent in the language of the unseen. That's not paranoia, that's presence. You weren't learning, you were remembering. From the moment you entered this world, your soul was preloaded with instructions, insight, and access to realms most people spend a lifetime trying to reach. Have you noticed how certain rooms always felt off to you? Even when nothing obvious was wrong, you'd hear people speak, and something deep inside would whisper, "That's not true." You could sit in a room full of laughter, and still feel the undercurrent of jealousy, rivalry, or hidden agendas. And because no one else seemed to notice, you questioned yourself. Was it in your head? Were you imagining it? No. Chosen one. You were simply awake in a world programmed to stay asleep. 1 John 2:20 says, "But you have an anointing from the Holy One." And all of you know the truth. That knowing is not something you stumbled upon. It's your inheritance. Your ancestors didn't just pass down physical features or family recipes. They passed down encrypted spiritual knowledge, divine codes, and unseen tools for survival. Unlike most, your connection to that inheritance was never fully severed. Even when you were too young to articulate it, it was already flowing through you. Think about Mozart. At 5 years old, he wasn't learning music, he was recalling it, playing compositions with mastery far beyond his years. That's what it's like for you, what others have to study for decades. You simply know. This is deeper than intuition. Intuition can be cultivated, but what you carry is hardwired into your being. It's why you've always felt older than your age. Why adults sought your advice, even when you were still figuring out your own life. And why you've carried emotional and spiritual burdens that were never yours to begin with. Jeremiah 3:3 says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." The unsearchable is exactly where your spirit lives. Consider Harriet Tubman again, not because of what she did, but because of how she did it. She navigated entire groups to freedom, often in the dead of night. Guided by an inner knowing she attributed to God. She wasn't lucky, she was tuned into a frequency that others couldn't hear. That same sacred tuning is in you. The world, of course, rarely sees sensitivity as a gift. As a child, you may have been called too sensitive, over-dramatic, or paranoid, but Numbers 12:6 reminds us, "When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams." Sensitivity is not weakness, it's spiritual radar. It's why you see too much, feel too much, and know things you can't explain. Think of Nikola Tesla. His inventions were not just products of intellect, but flashes of insight that came to him fully formed. As if downloaded from another realm, you've experienced this in your own way, answers that arrive without being sought, warnings that surface before trouble appears. And yes, this knowing has made your life heavier at times. Carrying divine knowledge means you also carry the responsibility that comes with it. Luke 12:48 says, "From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded." That's why you've often found yourself in positions where you had to speak up, protect someone, or stand apart, even when it cost you comfort. Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." You've been living that truth since before you had words for it. While others give people endless chances to prove their loyalty, you can see the truth long before it's admitted. So, chosen one, the next time you wonder why you just know things without evidence, remember this: you are not guessing, you are remembering. You are tuned into a frequency most people don't even know exists. That's not an accident. That's your soul remembering exactly who you are. And heaven trusting you to carry that knowledge for such a time as this. Number 6. You are the answer to questions humanity hasn't even asked yet. Chosen one. Have you ever felt like you've been living in a different timeline than everyone else? Conversations bore you because they orbit the same small circle of ideas you've already outgrown. Trends don't move you because they feel like recycled distractions. Most systems feel outdated the moment you touch them, as if your very presence exposes how temporary they really are. It's not that you're disconnected, it's that you are connected to something so far ahead that the current world hasn't even caught up to the questions you're meant to answer. You don't just see where things are, you see where they're going. You recognize the trajectory long before others realize the journey has even begun. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. That eternity is what you're tapped into. You feel the whispers of the future before they form into words. And yes, that kind of insight can be lonely. People say they want solutions, but only if those solutions let them stay the same. But you're not here to maintain comfort. You're here to release truth that demands transformation. Think of Leonardo da Vinci, an inventor, artist, and thinker centuries ahead of his time. He sketched designs for flying machines long before flight was possible. Many dismissed his ideas as unrealistic, but history proved he was simply early. You carry that same early frequency. This is why you've been rejected, dismissed, or called too intense or too deep. Not because you're wrong, but because you're arriving before the rest of the world is ready. You carry truths that don't fit the current programming, truths that challenge the very foundations people have built their identities on. For many, it's easier to reject the messenger than unpack the message. Amos 3:7 says, Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. You are walking proof of that principle, carrying plans from God that the world hasn't yet seen the need for. Consider Harriet Tubman again, not just for her bravery, but for her foresight. She navigated routes to freedom before most even believed escape was possible. She moved ahead of the timeline, pulling the future into the present. That's what you've been doing, often without even realizing it. You've likely found yourself asking, why can't anyone see what I see? It's not arrogance, it's reality. You've been walking through a world with spiritual GPS, while most people are still trying to unfold the paper map. You've been speaking a language that hasn't even been invented yet. And when that happens, you don't get applause, you get resistance. People don't like being confronted by what they're not ready to become. John 16:13 says, But when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will guide you into all the truth, and He will tell you what is yet to come. That is exactly what your spirit is doing. Look at Nikola Tesla. He envisioned wireless communication in a world still tethered to wires. People thought he was eccentric, but he was simply living in tomorrow, while everyone else was trapped in today. You, chosen one, are carrying the same assignment, not to fit into the present, but to anchor the future. And here's the deeper truth. You're not meant to wait for the world to catch up. You're here to plant seeds now, even in hard soil, knowing some of them won't bloom until long after you're gone. Hebrews 11:13 describes the heroes of faith who admitted that they were foreigners and strangers on earth, seeing promises from afar and still embracing them. You're in that same lineage. Think about Steve Jobs. He didn't just create devices, he reshaped the way humans interact with technology. He didn't wait for a market, he created it. In the same way, you weren't sent to follow the timeline, you were sent to bend it. The right souls, the rare ones, will recognize you not by appearance or credentials, but by the frequency you carry. They may not be able to articulate it, but they'll feel the echo of your knowing. Isaías 42:9 declares, See, The former things have taken place, and new things I declare. Before they spring into being, I announce them to you. You are one of those announcements walking, breathing proof of what heaven is releasing next. Yes, it's hard to be ahead of your time. Yes, it's costly, but that's exactly what makes you necessary. You're not just preparing for the future, you are the future. And one day, the very world that resisted you will realize you were the answer to the question they hadn't even asked yet. Number 7. Your isolation was initiation into a higher intelligence. Chosen one. Let's get one thing clear. What you went through was never just loneliness. To the outside world, it might have looked like abandonment, loss, or even failure. People may have whispered that you were falling off, that you had disappeared, or that you were wasting time. But what they couldn't see, what they had no ability to perceive, was that something sacred was happening behind the scenes, while the masses were busy performing for applause, chasing surface-level validation, and numbing themselves with distraction. You were being pulled away deliberately and divinely. You weren't being excluded, you were being extracted. You weren't breaking down, you were being downloaded. Do you remember how uncomfortable that season felt? How stripped and bare your life became? That wasn't a cruel twist of fate, it was a cleansing. The shallow had to be removed so the sacred could rise. Hosea 2:14 says, "Therefore I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her." Your wilderness wasn't empty, it was full of whispers. The world was too loud to hear. Think of Moses. Before he could lead Israel out of Egypt, he had to spend 40 years in the desert. From the outside, it looked like exile. In reality, it was training. That's what happened to you. When you're called to carry higher knowledge, the crowd must be cleared, the noise silenced, and the ego dismantled, not to break you, but to make space for something infinitely greater to enter. The version of you that could be manipulated had to be torn down, so that the version of you that hears directly from the source could finally come alive. You weren't hiding, you were being hidden. That cave wasn't a prison, it was a womb. While others were fighting to be seen or scrambling for shallow success, you were learning the language of the unseen. Psalm 27, 5 declares, "For in the day of trouble he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock." Look at Nelson Mandela. His 27 years in prison could have crushed him. Instead, it became his sacred classroom. He emerged, not bitter, but sharper, able to lead a nation because isolation had reshaped him. That's you. You were trained by silence, shaped by stillness, and instructed by a teacher who doesn't speak in noise, but in knowing. And maybe now you understand why you came out different, why you move with a peace that unnerves people who thrive on chaos, why you can sit in the middle of storms and still feel steady. You didn't just survive isolation, you were transformed in it. Isaiah 30:15 says, "In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength." That's the strength you now carry. Consider the life of David. Before the crown, before the throne, there was the field hidden away, tending sheep, writing psalms, and learning the ways of God. His brothers saw him as insignificant. God saw him as in preparation. The same applies to you. The season people dismissed as wasted was the very time heaven was shaping your spirit into a vessel that could hold what's coming. And when you finally emerged, you didn't come back the same. You carried wisdom most people can't trace. They can't figure out how you know what you know, or why things that would shake others barely move you. James 1-4 tells us, "Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." That's the work your isolation accomplished. Think about Malala Yousafzai's recovery after the attempt on her life. She was hidden away for months, not for fear, but for healing, reflection, and preparation. When she returned, her voice carried more authority than ever. Your hidden season has done the same for you. Sonu, chosen one. What you endured wasn't punishment, it was initiation. You went through something most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid: divine isolation. And you didn't just go through it, you grew through it. You walked out of that silence, not only stronger, but carrying the voice of the source itself. Now, every time you speak, every time you walk into a room, you release the sound of someone who has been in the Holy of Holies. And that, more than anything, is why you will never again be ordinary. Number 8. Your mind is wired to decode what others are trained to ignore. Chosen one. Let me tell you something. You might have suspected your whole life. You don't have a normal mind. And that's by design. While most people have been conditioned to only register what is obvious, socially acceptable, or loudly presented, your mind is tuned like a spiritual antenna to the deeper frequencies, the truths that never make it to the surface. You don't just see what's happening, you see through it. You see the meaning inside a moment that others would have walked past without a second thought. And have you noticed? Sometimes you even catch yourself asking, "Why am I the only one noticing this?" That's because you were never meant to accept life at face value. Proverbs 25:2-6. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search out a matter is the glory of kings. While the news manipulates narratives, you can feel the agenda beneath the words. While people polish their language, you pick up on the tone, the pauses, the tension between what's said and what's meant. The world is hypnotized by appearances and headlines, but you're already 5 layers deep, catching the symbolic, the hidden, and the divine fingerprints embedded in every situation. Consider Harriet Tubman once again. She could interpret signs in nature, shifts in wind, the position of stars, the sounds of animals to navigate enslaved people to freedom. To others, these were random details. To her, they were messages. That's the way your mind works. You don't just collect facts, you interpret signals. And here's the thing: when you try to explain what you see, you're often met with confusion or skepticism. Why? Because most people have been trained to filter out the very data you process naturally. They've been told to stop overthinking, when in reality, they've been underthinking. Matthew 13:16 says, "But blessed are your eyes because they see, and your ears because they hear." Your blessing is that you can't tune it out. Look at Sherlock Holmes, though fictional. His character mirrors what it's like to carry a decoding mind. He notices patterns in the smallest details, seeing connections invisible to others. You carry that same ability, except yours isn't for entertainment, it's for revelation. You see signs, synchronicities, and repeated patterns not because you're paranoid, but because your mind knows the difference between chaos and divine design. You're not making it up, you're picking it up. You're processing more than facts. You're filtering energy, frequency, symbolism, and patterns that carry spiritual messages. 1 Corinthians 2 reminds us, the Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. That's the level you operate on, the deep things, Nikola Tesla once said, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." That's exactly how you naturally function. Where others see random events, you see orchestration. Where others see coincidence, you see alignment. And maybe now it makes sense why shallow conversations exhaust you, why surface-level jobs or relationships can't hold your attention. You weren't built to live in the shallows. You were born for depth. You are a dot connector in a world of people afraid to see the picture. Daniel 2:22 says, "He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him." That's what happens in your mind every single day. Light searches the darkness and uncovers truth. Think of Steve Jobs. He didn't just see a computer. He saw a gateway to change human life. He connected dots others thought were unrelated, building bridges between technology, design, and human behavior. That's how your brain works, connecting dots. Heaven never intended to stay disconnected. And this is why people come to you when things don't make sense. They might not be able to articulate why they trust your insight, but deep down, they know you carry an intelligence that surpasses logic. You don't just observe life, you interpret it in real time. That interpretation makes you a living oracle of truth. Jeremiah 3:3 says, "Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." You live in that promise daily. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa with layers of hidden codes, mathematical ratios, and visual puzzles most people will never notice. You, chosen one, are like that painting, layered, intentional, and far deeper than a casual glance can reveal. So, the next time someone accuses you of overthinking, remember your mind was wired to decode, not dismiss. You are here to notice what others ignore, to interpret the signals they've been trained to miss, and to translate them into wisdom that transforms lives. That's not a flaw, it's your divine function. Number 9. You inherit knowledge the system tries to erase. Chosen one. Do you realize that you carry truths this world has worked overtime to bury? These aren't gentle omissions, they were deliberate cover-ups, crafted by power structures that built their dominance on distortion. What flows through you doesn't come from polished textbooks, carefully edited sermons, or sanitized documentaries designed for mass consumption. Your wisdom bypasses all that. It comes straight from what was hidden, what was locked away, what the gatekeepers hoped would never rise again. That's why your knowing feels so raw, so unsettling, so hard for others to wrap their minds around. It's untouched by manipulation. Luke 12:2 says, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known." You, chosen one, are living proof of that scripture. Your mind carries the keys to doors most people don't even know exist. Everything about the modern world has been curated to disconnect humanity from the source. Have you noticed it? History is whitewashed to hide inconvenient truths. Spirituality is commercialized until it's hollow. Language itself is twisted to redefine truth and make lies sound noble. The system isn't built to educate, it's built to program. But you never fully absorbed the programming. You questioned what others swallowed without a second thought. You felt the cracks in the story, the missing pieces, and the silenced voices. Something deep within you has always whispered, "This isn't the full story." And you were right. Think of Malcolm X. He didn't just accept the history he was handed, he sought out the history that had been erased. That knowledge made him dangerous to the system because it stripped away its power to control the narrative. You carry that same danger. Your soul is older than colonization, older than organized religion, older than empire. The knowledge you hold was passed down through bloodlines, preserved in dreams, embedded in the marrow of your bones. Sometimes it speaks through your instincts. Sometimes it arrives in visions or in those sudden moments of clarity that feel like lightning striking your spirit. Job 8:8. -10 urges us. Ask the former generation and find out what their ancestors learned. For we were born only yesterday and know nothing, and our days on earth are but a shadow. But in your case, chosen one, your soul remembers far more than your years should allow. Consider the Native American elders who carry oral histories stretching back thousands of years, stories the system tried to erase through forced assimilation, yet the truth survived because it was carried in the hearts of those who refused to forget. That's you. And maybe you've noticed when you speak from that knowing, it unsettles people, not because it's false, but because it's unfiltered truth that can't be twisted to make them comfortable. Isaiah 59:14-15 says, "Truth has stumbled in the streets. Honesty cannot enter. Truth is nowhere to be found. And whoever shuns evil becomes a prey." You've lived this. You've been misunderstood, even targeted, for refusing to play along with the lies. Think about Harriet Tubman. She didn't just free people physically, she freed them mentally, breaking the programmed belief that slavery was unchangeable. She was a carrier of forbidden knowledge that they were already free in God's eyes. You carry that same kind of revelation into this generation. The system wants people docile, compliant, and forgetful. It thrives when people can't remember who they truly are. But you were born remembering. You were born to carry a truth that predates the systems trying to erase it. Jeremiah 31:33 says, "I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts." What's written in your spirit cannot be deleted. No matter how much control, shame, or fear is thrown at you. Look at Maya Angelou. Her poetry was more than art. It was ancestral memory poured into words, reminding the world of truths it tried to silence. Your voice, chosen one, carries the same weight. Sonu, you are not out of place because you're broken. You are out of place because you are real. And in a world built on illusions, real is a threat. The knowledge you carry is not a hobby, an opinion, or a guess. It is an inheritance sealed by the source. And no matter how hard they try to erase it, truth will outlive every lie. You are proof. Number 10. Your spirit is a portal, not a personality. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered why people can't quite figure you out? Why some try to categorize you, label you, or box you in, yet nothing ever quite fits? That's because you were never just a type of person. What you carry transcends identity, style, or temperament. The weight people feel in your presence, the shift in atmosphere. When you enter a room, it's not attitude, it's not ego, it's access. You are not just a person occupying space. You are a living bridge between realms, a walking doorway through which the divine can flow into the physical. John 10:9 says, "I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved." In your own way, you reflect that truth not because you are the source, but because the source flows through you as a portal to higher reality. People sense it. even if they can't explain it. That's why your silence makes others uneasy. It's not that you're disconnected, it's that your energy is communicating in a language their spirit understands. Even when their mind resists, think of Mother Teresa. She didn't need long speeches to change hearts. Her mere presence carried a weight of compassion and divine love that was felt before it was heard. That's you. People feel exposed around you, not because you're judging them, but because your very being strips away what is false without you having to say a word. You don't need to point out what's inauthentic. Your frequency does it for you. You are a living contradiction to every lie people have built their lives upon. That's why your existence can be disruptive in the most holy way possible. 2 Corinthians 3:18 reminds us. We are being transformed into His image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. That transformation radiates through you, and others feel it, whether they acknowledge it or not. Consider Martin Luther King Jr. When he walked into a room, before he spoke a single word, there was a shift because his spirit carried the weight of his calling. His speeches inspired, but his presence convicted. In the same way, you are not here to entertain or perform. You weren't sent to be palatable. You were sent to radiate divine intelligence. And divine intelligence does not come wrapped in small talk or people-pleasing. It burns through masks. So when people say, "You're too quiet," what they often mean is, "I can't hide when I'm near you." Your stillness is not emptiness, it is alignment. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness you carry allows the presence of God to speak louder than any words you could choose. Look at Albert Einstein. His genius wasn't limited to equations. He often spoke about intuition, imagination, and a sense of wonder that came from beyond logical reasoning. You, too, operate at a frequency most people have never tuned into. That's why you're often misunderstood, not because you're antisocial or broken, but because your spirit is wired for a bandwidth others can't yet receive. You weren't built to blend in. You were designed to awaken, to reveal, to shift atmospheres without even raising your voice. That's why your life has been full of spiritual refinement, like a vessel in a potter's hands. You had to be shaped, pressed, and even emptied so the source could move freely through you. 2 Timothy 2:21 says, "Those who cleanse themselves will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the Master, and prepared to do any good work." Think of Nelson Mandela. After years of being refined in isolation, when he emerged, his very presence shifted nations. His life had emptied him of ego, so he could carry the weight of something greater. That's you. Your trials have not been random. They have been purification. You're not here just to deliver a message. You are the message. Your life is the sermon. Your presence is the prophecy. And no personality profile can contain that. Isaías 60:1 declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That glory moves through you not to make you famous, but to make God known. So when you walk into a room and feel the air shift, remember it's not about you fitting in. It's about heaven breaking in. You are not just a person in the room. You are the portal through which truth, love, and divine reality enter. And that, chosen one, is why you will never be ordinary again. Number 11. You don't follow blueprints. You channel originals. Chosen one. Have you noticed that no matter how hard you try, You can't seem to walk the same road as everyone else. You were never meant to follow the crowd, copy what's trending, or rely on someone else's formula for success. While most people are busy studying what has been done, you've been busy receiving downloads on what could be done differently. You're not driven by imitation. You're moved by inspiration that flows straight from the source. That's why your ideas often feel like they come out of nowhere. But they don't. They come from everywhere beyond here. Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? You do perceive it? You see things before they exist. While others are still perfecting yesterday's methods, you're already sketching the blueprints for tomorrow. You don't create from the limitations of the mind. You create from the unlimited field of spirit. You operate from a place beyond logic, beyond planning, beyond what's already been proven. That's why some people can't understand how your ideas arrive so quickly, so fully formed. You carry blueprints that don't yet exist in the physical realm, and when you try to explain them, people either look confused or try to shrink them into something familiar. But there's nothing familiar about what you bring. It's new, it's raw, it's disruptive, and it's often years ahead of its time. Think of the Wright brothers. In a world where flight was considered impossible, they carried an original blueprint no one had ever seen. They weren't copying, they were creating from a place the world had never visited. You operate the same way. This is why systems, categories, and rigid strategies have always felt suffocating to you. It's not because you're scattered or undisciplined, it's because you were never supposed to fit into anything that came before you. You're the starting point. The blueprint begins with you. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Those good works for you are the original works, things heaven planted in your spirit long before the world was ready for them. Consider Steve Jobs. He didn't just improve technology, he reimagined it. The iPhone didn't exist because a manual told him it should. It existed because he saw it before anyone else did. That's the space you live in, creating what the world doesn't yet know it needs. Yes, this can feel isolating, especially when others are praised for following the manual while you're building something that hasn't even been written yet. But what makes you feel out of place is exactly what makes you powerful. Jeremiah 1:5 says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." You weren't set apart to replicate, you were set apart to originate. Think of Maya Angelou. Her poetry didn't follow traditional rules, yet it became immortal because it was authentic, unfiltered, and birthed from a place beyond imitation. Originality will always look strange in a world addicted to replication. So stop shrinking to fit old patterns. Stop questioning your uniqueness just because others can't categorize it. Romans 12:2 tells us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." You weren't sent to walk a paved road, you were sent to build the one no one else could see. Consider Elon Musk. Love him or hate him. His ventures from reusable rockets to electric cars redefined entire industries because he refused to follow the given blueprint. You, too, are here to redefine the landscape you touch. And when you finally build what you've been shown, the world won't just notice, they'll realize they were waiting for it all along. Habakkuk 2:3 says, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time, though it linger." Wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. Your blueprint has an appointed time, and when that time comes, What you carry will shift not only systems, but souls. You are not a copy. You are not a variation. You are the first edition of something heaven decided the world needed right now. And the moment you embrace that fully, you'll stop chasing what's been done and start birthing what's never existed before. Number 12. Your knowledge activates dormant truth in others. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how, when you speak, something in the atmosphere shifts? You're not just sharing information, you're unlocking something ancient in the souls of those who hear you. It's not about sounding intelligent, winning arguments, or trying to impress. It's not persuasion, and it's not debate. It's deeper, more deeper. Your words land in the spirit of a person like a key sliding into a lock that hasn't turned in generations. You open your mouth, and something long buried inside them stirs, often before they even understand why. Proverbs 20:5. The purposes of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws them out. That's what you do. You draw out truth that's been lying dormant. Truth that their conscious mind has forgotten, but their spirit never has. This is why people often react so strongly to you. Some are magnetically drawn to you without knowing why. Others grow defensive, even irritated, for reasons they can't explain. Why? Because you awaken something they've spent years trying to forget. Suppress. Ordenu. It's not offense, it's recognition. Their spirit knows you're not speaking from ego, opinion, or second-hand information. Their spirit recognizes you're speaking from a place they once knew, but were trained to abandon. Consider Harriet Tubman. She didn't just lead people to physical freedom, she activated the belief that freedom was possible. The moment she spoke and acted, something deep within others lit up, even in the face of danger. That's the power you carry. Your presence awakens sleeping truth. You don't always get credit for what you activate. In fact, more often than not, you are misunderstood, dismissed, or even attacked. But behind closed doors, the very same people who resisted you are turning over your words in their mind. They replay what you said. They hear it again in quiet moments. And no matter how hard they try, they can't unhear the truth you released. Isaías 50:5. Once declares, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. What you speak plants seeds that keep growing, even after you've left the room. Think about Martin Luther King Jr. His "I Have a Dream" speech didn't just inspire it, unlocked hope in millions who had been taught to live without it. His words became keys that still turn in hearts decades later. Your words, chosen one, carry that same generational resonance. Divine knowledge doesn't wait for permission to shake a soul. It just does. That's why you'll notice how conversations change after you speak. People pause. They reflect. Sometimes they get awkward, change the subject, or even laugh it off, not because you were wrong, but because you touched a truth they weren't ready to face. Hebrews 4:12 says, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." That's why even your casual words can pierce deeply. Maya Angelou often said people will forget what you said, but never forget how you made them feel. You go one step further. They may forget your exact words, but their spirit will never forget the shift they felt. You're not triggering minds, you're triggering spiritual memory. You're a reminder of something sacred they've forgotten, a spark that reignites an ancient fire in their soul. And this is why your presence is disruptive without effort. You're not loud. You're not trying to be confrontational. You're simply aligned. And when you are aligned with Source, even your silence speaks volumes. Consider the prophet Nathan confronting King David, 2 Samuel 12. He didn't scream. He didn't accuse. He simply told a story. And in that moment, David's own heart recognized the truth and repentance followed. That's how you work. Chosen one, you may sometimes feel like no one is listening. But trust this, their soul heard you, and whether they admit it or not, you have activated something that will continue to unfold long after you've gone. Jeremiah 23:29 says, "Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces? Your voice carries that same fire and hammer, soft enough to enter, strong enough to break chains." You weren't sent to simply teach in the traditional sense. You were sent to awaken. And awaken, you do one conversation, one presence, one key at a time. Number 13. Your genius feels like madness to a world addicted to mediocrity. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how, no matter how clear your vision, how accurate your insight, or how sincere your delivery is, the first response you often get is resistance, confusion, maybe even mockery? Why do you think that is? It's because most people have been trained to trust only what has been stamped, approved, and sugar-coated. They are conditioned to believe what's safe, what's already popular, what's already been accepted by the masses. But you show up with divine knowing, unfiltered, unapologetic, unapproved by the world's gatekeepers, and that feels threatening. Why? Because it can't be controlled or explained away. 1 Corinthians 2:14 says, "The person without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, but considers them foolishness." Have you ever felt like your Spirit-given wisdom was dismissed simply because it didn't come with credentials? That's not because you're wrong, it's because you're early. Most people aren't truly thinking for themselves. They're repeating what's safe, what's been handed to them, what doesn't challenge their comfort. But you were never wired that way. You were designed to speak what is real, even if it offends, isolates, or makes you a target. Do you realize how rare that is? That's not arrogance, it's alignment with truth. Think of Galilei, when he said the earth revolved around the sun. The world called him dangerous, heretical, Evenmut. Century later, his madness became basic science. How many times have you spoken something that others rejected, only to watch it be embraced years later as if it were brand new? Truth rarely gets celebrated when it first arrives. It often gets crucified. John 15:18 says, "If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first." Can you see that the rejection you face is not proof you're wrong, but proof you're carrying something the world isn't ready for? Consider Vincent van Gogh. His paintings were ridiculed in his lifetime, dismissed as strange and chaotic. Today, they are priceless works of genius. What the world once mocked, it now worships. Could it be the same for what you carry now? You're not crazy. Chosen one, you're simply not digestible to a world addicted to playing small. You think differently. You don't conform. You don't wait for approval before you speak. Have you noticed how your thoughts often come from a place beyond the surface? That's because they flow from a higher order of consciousness that sees through time, ego, and illusion. Isaiah 55:8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, Neither are your ways my ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. That's the frequency you're tuned into. While others argue over what's trendy or traditional, you're sitting with truths that feel too real for the room. To the programmed mind, that feels like heresy. To the awakened soul, it feels like home. Think of Harriet Beecher Stowe, the author of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Her book was considered dangerous and divisive in its time because it challenged the moral complacency of a slave-holding society. Yet history remembers it as a spark that ignited change. Could it be that your dangerous truths are actually seeds of liberation? Even when people reject you, something in them still remembers. That's because your genius unsettles, not because it's wrong, but because it's free, and freedom terrifies those who've settled for survival. Galatians 5:1 declares, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Isn't that exactly what you're doing, refusing to bow to mental and spiritual captivity? Look at Elon Musk. Whether people admire or criticize him, they can't deny he's reshaped entire industries by refusing to accept limits. Disruption is never neat, but it is always necessary. So let them call it madness. Let them say you're too much, delusional, or ahead of yourself. One day they'll realize you weren't outrageous, you were honest. You didn't come to fit the mold. You came to break it so something truer could be built. And when that day comes, they won't just remember your words, they'll remember that you were the first to speak them. Proverbs 29:18 says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Chosen one, you are the vision bearer. And that vision was never meant to be small enough for the world to approve. It was meant to be big enough to set it free. Number 14. You don't just know truth, you embody it in real time. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how people can talk about truth all day, but when it comes time to live it, they flinch? They'll quote love, forgiveness, and faith, yet operate from ego, bitterness, and fear. Have you realized that's why you stand out? You're not out here trying to sound deep, recite spiritual texts, or convince anyone of anything. You live it. Truth isn't just something you speak, it's something you are. James 1:22 says, "Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says." That's the difference between you and the crowd. You are the doing, not just the saying. And that's exactly why your life often feels heavier, harder, and more isolating. Because you are not playing a role, you are carrying a reality. People can rehearse truth for performance, but when you embody it, your mere existence becomes a mirror. You don't have to call anyone out your authenticity. Does it without a single word. Hasn't that been your experience? When your silence unsettles people more than someone else's shouting. Think of Mahatma Gandhi. His entire philosophy was living the truth of non-violence, not just preaching it. That's why his life had weight, because it aligned. You carry that same alignment, and it makes you dangerous to a world obsessed with appearances. You're not a parrot of spiritual lingo. You're not a copy-paste prophet. You're not in it for the aesthetics of enlightenment. You are the function of it. You're the proof that the divine isn't a dusty concept trapped in ancient pages. It's alive, intelligent, and showing up in your very form. 2 Corinthians 3:3 says, "You show that you are a letter from Christ, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God." That's you, a living letter of truth. Consider Harriet Tubman. She didn't just speak about freedom, she embodied it by risking her life to walk people out of bondage. In the same way, your truth is in motion, not just in conversation. And yes, that makes life harder. When you embody truth, you don't get the luxury of excuses. You feel every cost of staying aligned in a false world. You are not living for applause, you are living for alignment. Galatians 1:10 reminds us, if I was still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. How often have you had to choose between pleasing others and staying true to your calling? Think of Martin Luther King Jr. He didn't water down truth to be accepted. He lived it so fully that it outlived him. His legacy didn't come from just knowing what was right, but embodying it until it shook the foundations of injustice. You carry an ancient memory and a futuristic code that collide in the present moment. That's why you don't fit into categories, titles, or formulas. You were designed to recalibrate frequency. Have you noticed how rooms feel different when you walk in? Even if you haven't spoken, that's not personality, it's presence. Matthew 5:14-16 says, "You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." Light doesn't ask for permission to shine, it just does. And in doing so, it reveals everything around it. Consider Mother Teresa. Her power wasn't in speeches, but in how she embodied love every single day. That's what makes you unforgettable, because you don't just discuss truth, you walk it. And that walk rattles comfort zones. So, yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's heavy. But don't mistake isolation for exile. It's activation. The storms weren't setbacks, they were sacred initiations. The silence wasn't empty, it was bandwidth for the source to download through you without interference. That's why you now move differently, speak differently, and carry a weight others can't name. You are not living off recycled truth, you're living off divine data pulsing through your spirit in real time. You're not just a student of truth, you are the proof of it. And no, they won't always get you, but they'll feel you. Long after you've left the room, your presence will keep rearranging realities. Think about Jesus himself. He didn't just teach the kingdom, he embodied it. And the world couldn't ignore him. You carry a fragment of that same mission, not to echo the world, but to interrupt it with heaven's truth. Isaiah 61:1 says, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me. He has sent me to bind up the broken-hearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives." That's your assignment, to be the evidence, not just the messenger. So walk boldly, speak rarely, move precisely, and never water yourself down for a world still catching up to your frequency. Because you were never here to fit in, you were sent to rewire reality. Beloved chosen ones, if these words resonated in your spirit, if they reminded you of something you've always known but maybe couldn't quite articulate, then take this as your divine confirmation. You are not crazy. You are chosen. You are not out of place. You are set apart. Every tug in your soul, every whisper from within, every moment you've questioned why you see the world differently has been heaven's way of saying, "I made you this way on purpose." If this message touched you, don't keep it locked away. There is someone out there right now silently wrestling with their identity, wondering if they're broken or if they're the only one who feels this way. You might be the bridge between their confusion and their clarity. Share this with them. Send it to the friend who's been doubting their own worth. Pass it along to the one who feels unseen, unheard. or misunderstood. You never know, this might be the confirmation they've been praying for in secret. The world needs your light, unfiltered, unapologetic, and fully alive. This community exists, so you never have to dim that light again. Here, you are safe to walk boldly in who you were created to be. Here, your depth isn't too much, it's celebrated. Here, your truth isn't something to hide, it's the very reason you're here. So, I say to you, stay aligned, stay authentic, and above all, stay awake. I also want to pause and say a heartfelt thank you to every single one of you who has been walking this journey alongside me. For those who have supported through Super Thanks, know that your generosity humbles me deeply and helps keep these messages flowing to souls across the world. And for those who haven't or can't contribute financially, please understand this. My gratitude for you is just as real and just as full. Your presence here, your time, your comments, your prayers, they are priceless. Whether you give financially or simply show up with an open heart, you are part of this mission, and I honor you for it. As you go forward from here, I speak blessings over your path. May the wisdom you carry open doors no man can shut. May your courage inspire others to step into their own truth. May your discernment protect you from every trap set in your way. And may your light continue to pierce through the thickest darkness, igniting hope in everyone who encounters you. Numbers 6:24-26 says, "The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace." I declare that over you now. We will meet again in the next transmission. But until then, keep walking with your head high and your spirit anchored in the truth that you are heaven's answer to a world in need. God bless you. Chosen one, I'll see you soon.